Hey, in this video, we'll go over the different options for Campervan water filtration and give our recommendations on which ones are best for different use cases. So the first one we're going to talk about is the reverse osmosis filters. So we've seen a lot of people use these in their van builds, and there are some pros about them. They are very effective at removing larger particles as well as smaller particles, so like bacteria and viruses. But they do have some cons with them as well. For one thing, they have a reject stream, so they actually end up wasting pretty much the same amount of water that you get out of them. So we don't really like that about them. Also, because they are so good at filtration, they actually remove a lot of vitamins and minerals from the water. And we'll have a study linked below that actually proved this, that people who used reverse osmosis filters were shown to have a vitamin B12 deficiency. Also, a good thing to point out here is that these filters are also point of use. So you'll just use them with like your, if you have a separate like water spout or something like that, they're not onboard or inline filters. Also, these are very expensive. I don't remember exactly what they are, but they're upwards of like $300 depending on which ones you get.
Yeah, they can range anywhere between like $300 for like the most basic setup, upwards of like $1,500 for those either on shelf or, under your sink type systems.
Yeah, so we don't really recommend these per se.
So next on the list is Inline Strainers. These are filters that remove larger particles like dirt, dust, and rocks, things of that nature. It's not as effective as say one of the multi-stage carbon filters, or as effective as the UV and RO filters, but they still do remove a good bit of debris.
These are the most cost effective of the filters that we're talking about. Typically they cost maybe from like $10 to $50 depending on what you get. They also, if you buy the SureFlow water pump, there is an inline strainer that it either comes with it or it's from the same brand, but that's what we used and we're really happy with it.
Okay, next on the list is multi-stage carbon filters. These are filters that have a carbon filter as well as either a single or dual stage filter. These filters are typically good at filtering small and large particles. It's not as good as UV mixed, just because it's not as good at filtering out pathogens and viruses.
One thing that those will do that some other filters won't do is they'll actually remove things like pesticides and herbicides and also chlorine from your water. So next we'll talk about UV filters. Well, they're not really filters. These are actually purifiers. So they don't filter the water, but they purify it. So they basically just kill off anything that might be in the water. So because they don't filter the water, if you don't have something like an inline filter at least, you could still get some particles coming through. So these are probably the most effective at killing off viruses and bacteria. These are also point of use, so just like the reverse osmosis filter, you would need to have a separate water line just for this filter, for like filling up your water bottle or stuff like that. So these are really good at killing viruses and bacteria, but it's important to know that they don't filter the water, they just purify the water, so they'll kill off anything like that, but they won't remove larger particles from the water. So it is good to pair this with at least an inline strainer. So now we'll get into what we chose for our setup. We went with the ClearSource 2-stage filter, the 2-stage onboard filter. So they have both a 2-stage and a 3-stage, and they also have an onboard and inline system. So we went with the 2-stage because we felt like that was good enough for our needs. The 3-stage is, I think it's a bit more expensive. I think
it's about $100 difference.
Yeah, so maybe it's worth it. But yeah, we went with that, and then we also have the inline strainer as well to just catch those bigger particles before they go through the water pump, because they can damage your water pump. But then we wanted something in between our actual water tank and the rest of our plumbing systems. And then also we're gonna get some UV water bottles. So this is something that I think is like a really good idea. If you have the means, you can get water bottles that have a little UV light in them. It's a good way to at least get the UV purification of your water without spending a fortune on the point of use, UV systems. And if you are on a very tight budget, what we would recommend to at least have is at least an inline strainer plus a UV water bottle. You could probably get both of those for like less than $100, because they make those water bottles pretty cheap. Like on the cheap end, I've seen them for like $30 upwards to like maybe $70 to $100. And
just
then,
make sure you do some research and get, if you're going to go the water bottle route, do some research and make sure that you're getting one from a reputable brand that is actually a UV light and not just some purple colored LED.
yes.
So that's going to be it for this video.
And if you made it this far, please give us a thumbs up and a subscribe if you haven't already. Also, let us know in the comments if you feel like we missed anything or if you have any other questions.